Felicity Zonda. They were married in 1986 and welcomed their first child, Lilita, in 1988. From 1987 to 1988, he taught anatomy to second-year medical students and started specialization in whilst in the UK, to South Africa as a National Medical and Dental Practitioners Association activist. Dr. Gil participated in the formulation of healthcare policies for a democratic South Africa and concurrently advised the Department of Public Administration in the establishment of Government Employee Medical Scheme, known as GEMS. In the late 1990s, Dr. Gil made the leap from practicing surgeon into the world of business. He took up various directorships with his friends and participated in transaction and business opportunities in various sectors across the African continent. These included mining, mineral beneficiation, financial services, industrial projects, and of course, his first love, healthcare. In the early 2000s, Dr. Gil participated in large empowerment transactions, including Aspen Pharmaceuticals, Old Mutual, Nedbank, amongst others. In this regard, Dr. Gil initiated and engaged in various transformative initiatives from the promotion of black industrialists, professionals, and entrepreneurs. In 2001, Dr. Gil founded African Financial Group, AFG, as an investment group whose ultimate goal was to achieve socio-economic impact and transformation. Through AFG, he founded and invested in various companies, including the first investor in Ifvili Group, the only wool processing factory in South Africa today, and the only cashmere processing plant in the African continent, which recently launched a second factory in Cape Town, producing garments for the global textiles market. He was the director and investor in Sakiwo Healthcare Solutions, a pan-African hospital development company that is a tool as a born venerable. So Paramisa Gamshumayel Wemini, Umfundisumolo, Ozausinigumiyalesa Wanamhlanje. Itulo number 81. Sinikeze umfundisi.
Kumfundisi uzide umongameli wesekethe awungena esekethini ungakhange ukhahlele kumongameli kube nguye othi ungangena abe nezitya. Mfundisi Msotyana nomama Msotyana okwephakathi kwethu befundisi baninzi endibabonileyo ngawuphela imini xa ndibabiza ngamagama. Mama uMlambo Ngcuka sukuba ngusekela mongameli welizwe lakuthi iminyaka edlulileyo kunye noTata uNgcuka. Baba Joe Phahle ungumphathiswa wezempilo nesekela mphathiswa wezempilo zonke ezikhoyo phakathi divile ke into bangabe unjengele uba ukulisanga kunjengele apha awuzuphuma kakuhle angabhukuka ningana ngaweva amandla kaThixo uThixo anichase anomeleze xa singekhoyo thina ngoba sizawusuka xa ningesasiva amandla entetha zethu nengoma zethu xa ukuxakeka umphile xa isithukuthezi sifika ukuyinto ethi kuni ubabe lapha umama ubabe lapha utata mhlawumbe ngekungenje benizange kulinika iculo lasewisile u206 kunevesi pha ethi ngipheleke mukhululi ngoba mnandi ndakuhamba nawe uze ndingadinwa because ukulahlekelwa ngabazali will inevitably lead to moments of loneliness, because the one that has loved you, the one that has given himself to you, that voice and that warmth of the heart that allowed you ukwenza impazamo elizweni awulahleka endleleni ilizwe lawuhleka ilizwe lawuthatha kuni benisazi into bangaba ke ikhona indlela ndawuthatha ifoni ithathe notata amandla azawubuya, and because that voice is no more there will be those times that you feel lonely, and at that lonely moment, please just take time to say to God, Dipheleke mukhululi, because that's what you will need on this journey. But at the same time, I hope and I trust this is true, because I want to share with you the words of Ulfat Guthi, who is from Europe, who writes these beautiful words, and he says, the best gift that parents can give to a child are two things. He says the first is roots, the other is wings. And it is my belief that if you have lived as close as you have lived with your father and your mother, they have given you the roots that are going to allow you to stay grounded when the winds of the world change from left to right. When the storms of life begin to uproot you from the foundations of who you are, that which your mother has given you as roots and your father has given you as roots, if you nurture those roots, let me say this, you will feel lonely, but you'll never be alone, because the power of their life will journey with you throughout history. And because they've given you roots, you are able then, ilanga lichisa, izinto zingabonakali, imvula zinganethi, njengomthi onenqambu. All you do is suck from the ground that was given to you by your parents, and when you suck from that ground, you will be nourished in the absence of the rains of the world. And because you know that truth, then you will have the roots that hold you together. And he says the other thing that they've given you wings. And the best that the fathers can give you wings is that you are able to know that there is no boundary that you can't reach. There is no place that you cannot be. You are born from these places, these are your roots. But my understanding is that Sesego, you are flying in New York. Lilita, you are flying in Gabon. And because you've been given wings by your parents, you are able then to live your life not only as the beginning of your own lives, but as the continuation of your father, of your parents' lives. because they've given you wings and roots. Silapha ke thina kwikhaya lakwamahlathi ingekuba sinamachiza ezakuthi sakunika zonke lenhlungu iphele. Hayi, silapha ingekuba sinobulumko ezakuthi xa sithethile nani zonke insizwe esizaboneka singabi nakuwe kwenzeka. Silapha singamanqina. And please listen this to me carefully. I'm trying to convince you of this. Singamanqina okubangaba in your father's life. Ubangaba umkhumbi wakho kulapha besizawuthi lo ulelapha ebengeyondoda nje emadodeni. Because there's a mistake that we do. We elevate ubudoda beyond the elevation of our humanity. And when we elevate ubudoda beyond elevating our humanity, we run the risk of being muscular. We run the risk of appearing as if ubudoda, in a domineering sense, it is the ultimate of who we can be. No, utatako ebengendoda nje ebengumuntu ebantwini. Ebengumuntu ebantwini ngokuhamba kwakhe ngentetha zakhe ngokuphila kwakhe. We do not see maledom. We saw the power of being human. Because ubudoda bakhe was always a servant of his humanity. And because it was a servant of his humanity, ubudoda bakhe, as far as I remember the history, allowed himself to say, there was a time when my wife needed to go and study somewhere. There was a time that my progression as a man needed to be pulled back and allow myself to be the sandal of service and help to my wife. Who's willing to serve her too. And because of that, we are able to stand here together and say, Unitovana, lo ulelapa, lo silakumabilelo, lo nasiye some cremator, gumtu ebantui. As a result, because of his life, the way he lived his life, I just remember the words Skatata lona bati umkai tla bhala ngutata uMaHayi atheketa ngaye athi hamba mntaka omnyama ubuyikiwa yomhlaba ubulikhanyiso soluntu usibusikaniso solakhe lehlabathi uyakuqaqamba nasezingwengwezini. And because we know your father's life, we are clear that he will then indeed shine. And Minake, Tohwana, as I read and listened to the obituary to Mahlati, I am fascinated by the sense of responsibility he felt or had to deal with from an early age. So silapha ke sizokuthi kuni ningabantu bakwaMahlati as this family, even at this hour, sizokuthi ukufa can never define who your brother, who your father is. Let me repeat that. We are not defined by death. We are defined by the life we have chosen to live. Let me repeat that again. We are not defined by death. Ukufa, all it tells us is that your physical presence is no more. What defines us is the life we choose to be and to live. And because Dr. Mahlati chose to be the person he is, we are not gathered here at this moment of his absence to be overwhelmed by his death. We are either to say, to tell death, even though you take him physically away from us, you can never take him from us, because his ukufa ayisospelo. Silapha sizonqina. As these people are here, sizonqina sizothi kuni uGilimamba Mahlati will not be remembered by the ashes that we've put into that grave. Will be remembered by the stories that you choose to tell us about who he is, because we know he chose to be that person who's an ethical presence in the world that changes things from yesterday to a better tomorrow. We know him. So because we are refusing to allow death to define him for us, we are able then to look at his life. And Payana Pasebenza Kona, Sino DJ, and Razumbiza Nagam, Ukona, Unamatula Watandu Wadale. I do not know what kind of music your father listened to. I do not know whether he liked jazz or he liked the blues, because I've never kind of had the time to spend time with him in music. But when I hear from the age of 16, he had this responsibility to build on his life. And then I hear at the age of 21, he was able to qualify as a medical doctor at the age of 21. And then I heard that over time, he was able to go to be part of the teaching staff at UCT. At the times when access to black people was not what it is right now. All I could remember as I read through that is to hear the echoes of Nina Simone in my mind. As Nina Simone saying, you are young, gifted, and black. And because those words were the ones that invited him into the existence of excellence, he became one of those who became a symbol, not of only access for black people, but excellence. I want to hear this. There's an obsession in our country now of being the first black. There's an excellence, there's an excitement about being there in that space. If your presence in that space does not bring excellence, you become just a token for appearance sake. And your dad became, in his own commitment, there were stories that you are still going to hear. So I don't want to steal from other people, because I had some stories yesterday about what they used to do when they are going to do illegal operations. All I'm saying is that in him, we heard the invitation that comes from people like Nina Simone about young, gifted and black people taking responsibilities in their spaces. And because of that, we're celebrating this life of this man. And therefore, as I move towards my own departure from this stage, because I need to go to the airport myself and leave here, I want to give you then the arguments that Paul makes. Yes. Paul argues in the book of Corinthians that life cannot be measured in its essence and its own impact by the death of the body. Paul argues, and Paul says, without the possibility and the power of resurrection, the Christian faith has no power. And then he says, there is no doubt that the physical body we carry is going to die. He says, because we are mortal. Singabandu benyama. Lenyama sikuyo ikwele ukubola. Lenyama sikuyo is not meant to last forever. And therefore, part of life and therefore part of Christian living, it is the understanding that our lives in the body form are going to come to an end. And therefore, those who are Christian, they will come a place to attempt Saban Baso's affair. Why not? They will a place to Abangaba Pastor Bangomolo, but of figure who in a cancer, at because they are not only acting contrary to what God has created, because inherent in our body there is vulnerability. And because of that vulnerability, we are able then to entertain and engage death, not as a point of defeat. It is a moment of transition. It is a moment where the mortal, where the body, where the one enters the space where it is unable to stand on its own. And when we get to that point, because in the way you live your life, you therefore are able to transcend the physical being that you live. So Paul argues and says, Ukufa is inevitable for us being human. So it would be as if we expected Gilimamba to last forever. He could not last forever. And therefore, we are all going to die. And he talked to I'm saying it to say to us that dance of life is the ability to dance with the impending death. And as we dance with that death, that impending death, we dance with that death with integrity. We dance with that death with courage. We dance with that death with living our lives ethically, so that in that life living, Jesus can be made to be seen. And in having made that argument, he then says, here is the good news. The good news is, once this body dies, we stand inherit the one that is not mortal. Now, I'm not a doctor here. We're going to professor here. We're going to talk about the metaphysics and all the kind of stuff about it. But as a question of faith, Paul said to you, Mahlati, if you measure your father's life simply by the moment he was born and by the moment he died, you are going to miss the impact and the power of his life. And therefore, if you are going to follow what Paul says, once you don't fear death anymore, once death has no power over you to define what life is, you then stand a good chance to stand up and say, death, where is thy sting? Because you are no more afraid of death. Because death is not the definer. Our lived life is the definer. And because we know the power of God in that moment, we are able to stand with Paul and say, death has been subsumed in the victory of God. And because it is assumed in the victory of God, we are able to say, Ewe asimoni, Ewe asamva gendebe zenyama. But for goodness sake, when we close our eyes, when you don't feel him physically, allow your soul to dance with the melodies of your father's life. Allow the Father that God has held in his hand to visit you in the absence of the physical. As you retrieve from the memory of his life, as you dance with the troubles of life, and as you hear his voice as the music for your future, please allow that future to infuse you in your moments of darkness and pain, and say to death, where is thy victory? Because the God who has given me my Father has maintained that in my memory with him, my Father is still alive. And because my father is still alive, because my brother is still alive, today is not the end of who he is. It is a mere comma. It is a mere moment. And it is my prayer that as you remember and as you pray, you allow Paul's argument to remind you that death has no power over you. For life is from God. God bless you. And forevermore. Amen.
Ewe Nkosi mandilume ilebonga
kuhle Nkosi ukuba lapha. Siphele nguwe sisuka kumakhaya ngamakhaya. Wazosibeka Nkosi kule nkundla yakwaMahlati. Awanela Nkosi ukusibeka wasithumelela Nkosi umzukulwana kaMolo ukuze azosufisa ubuncwane bezinto zakho njengoThixo. Wabhabha nathi Nkosi zathi indlela zelizwe zwakinya amadoda namakhosikazi. Kodwa wasenza amalungisa wasithwala wazosibeka kule ndawo. Sithi Nkosi ngomfundisi uMolo osithumelele yena. Kubo bonke Nkosi oThixo abamiswe ngamadoda namakhosikazi kwelizwe. Asimbonanga uThixo njengawe. Ngoba wena Nkosi ulande umkhondweni wethu sibhadula enhlango. Ukhumbula oba singumsebenzi wezandla zakho. Usilande ngelizwi lakho. Nansi Nkosi ifamily yakwaMahlati. Abantwana Nkosi bakaGilimamba Mahlati. Ngiba uThixo wabo babe ngabantwana bakho. For the way forward. Ithi Nkosi xa izawugoduka le ndedema yakwaMolo uphinde Nkosi uyinike. Uphinde Nkosi uyinike. Uyambathise Nkosi ngengubo yakho yobubele. Uyambathise Nkosi ngofefe lwakho njengoThixo. Nkosi ngokusifisa izwi lakho. Langa Nkosi ezinhlizweni zethu lingafumana indawo yokuhlala. Makathi Nkosi xa begoduka bebuyele emakhaya. Xa bebuzwa babo kusithwani bathi bengekaphenduli. Kuthiwe thula siyakuva siyabona apha ebusweni ngenxa yotshintsho. Ngoba ilizwi lakho is meant to change us. Sincede ke Nkosi. Hlala nathi kule ndawo. Hlala nabo Nkosi ifamily yakwaMahlati kwindawo ngendawo. Sikelela Nkosi ukushunyayelwa kwelizwi lakho nokuthetha kwelizwi lakho. Mabathi Nkosi lihlale kubantu abazawuthi ewe ndivile ngoku nangona phakade. Amen. Ndithabatheke lithuba lomzuzu ndibiza uDr. Mahlati eze ngaphambili for the way forward. Umfundisi uMolo sizamkhulula ufanele ba aleqe i-flight emthatha. Kodwa ke abanye abantu i-program izawuqhuba eyomncamo. Siyabulela kakhulu. Over to you.
Sibulele kakhulu umongameli sibulela nakubefundisi ngokubanzi, sibulela nakumfundisi uMolo, uhambe kakuhle mfundisi wami. Siyabulela ngobukho bakho kwelikhaya. Sizawungena ngoku kwinkqubo yezithethi. Sinabantu abasisithandathu abazawuthetha before the family ithetha. Kukho isicelo endizawusenza. I know that Gil used to talk about many stories about this place. As new story were true, some might have been manufactured a little bit. But there are two that I would like to just mention. There is one, he liked telling everybody. I think because he wanted everybody to believe that we're very brave. He would never miss a chance of telling people about the encounters of our grandfather Umqebantu with the lions down near Osborn. That's a true story, it's not a lie. There is a second one that he may not have shared with you. Sikhule apha kule ngingqi kukho amadoda amakhulu who would intervene xa izulu kucaca into yoba heyi lize kakubi aphuma bethi intonga zawo. We've structured the program so that latest by 1 o'clock specifically, because we know, those of us who grew here, but when the weather is like this, come afternoon, the lightning and thunder that you get in this place is unbelievable. I understand, Bishop, Indoba, ngenxa yemfundiso zenu lamadoda nentonga ayeka. Kuthiwa akhoyo akasazisebenziseli to save. Azisebenzisela ukuthumela emntwini. So then we want to avoid a situation where siba sengxakini. So ndizawucela ke izithethi that are to the point. Gil was not somebody who talks for too long. Please emulate him, because in case you do not comply, I might use the present guys nendonga zazo. Sizawuqalisa ke ngoku ngezithethi. Kukho amadoda amabini endizawabiza eze apha. I had an opportunity of watching one of them in Durban. I won't say what they were doing, but I had opportunity of watching them as friends, you know, no Gil. Both in Durban and in Cape Town, when I went to Cape Town to take over a practice Gil. Of course, in Cape Town, they were joined by the other one and continued what they were doing. I will then call first two of them, Mr. Bulelani Nzuka, Mr. Sakima Tozoma, up. They will be followed by Mr. Leon Naidu, Emva Gogo. I will then come to the stage. So I would like Sundela, Bezambo.
phambili ndiyathemba into yoba uyandinika ipermission yoba ndithi all protocol observed. Zininzi isitatanyiswa ezilapho. Izawuthi ixesha uba ndisibize one by one. Ndifuna okokuqala ukuthi thank you to the family for giving us the opportunity ukuba sizokwenza amazwi amafutshane ngomhlobo wethu. I've known Gil for over 45 years. That's how long our friendship stretches. You can imagine getting a hlala imini yonke ndithetha ngezinto esizenzileyo kunye naye. And so I'm going to be anecdotal. WesiXhosa ndizawuhlaba phandle hlabe phandle ndixele ingqumelo. uGil sidibene naye ngexesha sesi-student phaa eNatal. Thina ngelo xesha we were practicing as lawyers in Durban. Ibaluleke ngoku kwakukho nomfuyi ongasekhoyo uNtobeko Maqhubeko. Ukho kule group yethu uLuyanda kaMphahlwa nankiya. Ukho kule group yethu uGabula kaNdabuse, uMbulelo Hongo kunye nabanye. Yena ke usistudent uGil ngoko thina sesiyasebenza. And we're working for a very strong and difficult taskmaster, uGriffiths Mxele. As a result, we were working 7 days a week. So sevenza iveki yonke, ngomgqibelo sokuphuma phaa ngabo-1. Kufuneka sibuyile ngecawa futhi size ofisini. Because at that time we were handling just about most of the political trials in South Africa that affected our people. And so there wasn't time, lots of time for us to enjoy ourselves. But as a class, one no, no matter. I'll tell you just one story. Kwakuko in nightclub Mlazi, which was a star 0.5. There was a friend of ours who was learning a part for a DJ call. Sasiyapa, so there's this one Saturday we went there. Sabuya Ngabutu. Sinenyama kapebe siteke kwa talent. Sinetipu. uGil kunye noGabula balala kunye. Waqonda uGabula into bano uzakaqhotse esisteke asifaka phe ovenini. Ngexesha se-ovenini steak wabuka ubuthongo walala. Weva lento ukhuthuza ecani kwakhe. Wasondela. Wabeka umlenze. Wasuswa. Wafaka isandla. Kwathiwa hayi. But hey, sizenza clever wena sondela manje. Yaphendula enye. Hayi Gabula. Ndim uGilimamba. I don't know what inspired his parents to name him Gilimamba. Because if you take that name literally, now Imamba is a poisonous snake, deadly poison. And so Gilimamba was named because Mamba kills people. He was given this name. He's going to be what I might call the slayer of the dragon. The dragon that kills ignorance and backwardness. So this is the slayer that Gilimamba, because he's there to protect the lives of people. Because the Mamba kills people, therefore Gilimamba must be there to kill what kills people. That is why I got the name. And therefore the foresight to born by the uzawusithi andazi ke cha kwakuye babecinga ntoni. He lived to honor his parents through his name. He was a fine doctor. He was a fine human being. A clever fellow. A great networker. Gileben networker actually. So Spanji wake up on 81, I'll be quick. Then turns out to kwaBhaca. Spanji wako 81. Wakaula. Oh, before that, they graduated to go 81. Sinemoto kabisa sinazo. Sasine Alpha ne Juliet. Ugile ngekafumana salary yakhe uqala wahamba uthenga iJuliet. Uyafika ngokupha esikolweni kugcwela kana parking. Andizubiza igama lenye indoda eyikhona. Wathi kanisuse izincence zenu uma sopakisha imoto. That's it for you. Sibanjweke wabaleka umhlobo wethu utshone bhayi ukwenzela angachatshazelwa ligazi. Well, we were happy that he managed to escape, even though there was nothing really that affected him. We kept in touch when we were in prison. Came out of prison, and Gil has moved to Cape Town. When Gil arrived in Cape Town, there was only one African doctor, both serving Nyanga Langa Kubuletu and Khayelitsha. One, uMatikisi. If we come in now any other South Africa where apartheid has been vicious, it's Cape Town. When I arrived in Mnapa in 88, there was only one law firm of Africans. The place was unkind to African professionals. But Gil went there and started a practice Kubuletu, were extended to Khayelitsha and brought in quite a number of other young black doctors to Cape Town. That's the contribution that Gil made. As Gil was practicing there and doing wonderful work, Usagi will talk about some of the things that he was able to do. But I want to highlight just one thing. Sihleli ke kwenye indawo uNanda. Kube kumlo uhlahle intwana bentanyeni. Caba no izawufa lentwana bizwe ambulance ugilaye kuyo afika ibamba bemqaleni. Athi kwedini uzongakhohleli. Ubuke wakhohlela uzawufa. Wahlala nayo lentwana uGil all the way ungena naye Fortescue okuyibambile. Yathi bajingene theater wayiyeka lapho igazi lapho all over la mpompoza kakhe, and that boy was saved. Oh my God. He saved him. Now uGil ke uhlala around the bush. Ngelo xesha ke kwakunzima ukuyohlala kwezindawo kuthiwa se-suburbs. Sasihlala pelokishini. uGil waba ngowona bokuqala uhlala kwi-suburbs. And people are questioning this. And I said to him, Gil, this doesn't matter. As long as you assert your right, you are a South African, you stay where you want. Don't allow the regime to confine you to these townships. That could have worked well for us, because on the day you released kwaMahlati, sat traffic corpses, that's a director, when they were wrong. That Madiba was not crushed to death that day. It was a miracle. Oh my God. In the thickest of the people, Papa was stage. Sat basiphume khona sathi sizawuyaphi. Wathi qatha kum yathi zani labasa kwaGil around the bush. Xa sifika khona kakho lo mfuthu. Sathi bana nabanye belungu pha. uGil regretted that up to this day. Yes. Because from that day when I was abelungu, they looked at him differently. Because the first place that Mandela went to on his release was to Gilimamba's house. Zizi love that. Did you come and see? Gil visited us in Geneva. Well, I have to mention this in honor of Viva. Visited us in Geneva. I've never seen a man so much in love. He was writing to Viva every day. I'm explaining namhlanje we did this. Every day writing this love. And I've never met Lufu. Now remember, sahlukene no Gilimamba ngo-81 siyehlombe sidibana ngoku ngo-86 madly in love. Did you Gilimamba, where do you get this capacity to laugh? So come back, Gil gets married, and the marriage yabo, he was in a restaurant. He wanted to get married Gil at Masien kwaManji man. What do Viva know? My parents, I want to be married in church. So we were working the night Masa in the UTF, so I managed to get to Fundisi. Why catch along when I know first no English. And I was there to represent the family walk on. So to make sure that the chap in charter capture in charter right, I need you to chat to justificate to us to register. But the point I want to make about this day, it was a small wedding in a restaurant. It's not something that was like Gilimamba. That was the influence that Vuyo started at that very moment to wield on Gilimamba. And that was to continue for the rest of their lives. I want to tell you two things. Oh, thanks. Gil goes to, follows Viva to London. Sebenze pa. Benze operations appendix. Yayiqala kufika lento eLondon. Yobonza operations usebenzise iTV, icameras ne-monitors there. So uprofessor wayesenza i-operation wayiqala jonge apha phansi asebenzise isandla siyi-1 asike aphinda ujonge iTV repeating lento beseyenzile. And it will take a whole day to do a simple appendix operation. And this would frustrate Gilimamba because there's almost every day protesting. So one day, the professor got called on the phone. What were we? Professor, you've got a telephone call. What to go? Will you start in the meantime? Yo, what job? Okay. First thing he did was to take the patient. And then, because we saw a monitor, who left, who right, who left. So what fella why sick our tinina over Chogepa, a guy Chongangale. Why Yenza white clipper. 5 minutes done. One guy no professor passes being roped. What a professor, it's done. What? Who did that? What was this gentleman here? What a professor, look, this is where the cut was. Look at the clamp. You see, there's no bleeding. Can we close? He said close, and he was fired. For daring to expose the professor's ignorance. An African from South Africa going to London to show off a professor. And he was there to claim respect for all of us. And we're very proud of those achievements that he made. And so Gil comes back and settles in Pretoria. And who welcomes him in Pretoria other than Professor Mkwena here? And takes him and he works there. And so when I left, government very quickly. I had worked in government, working with people I don't know, working with people I don't like, but these are the people I was forced to work with. And so when I came into the private sector, I was determined, I'm going to work with the people I like, with the people I enjoy spending time with. I spend more time at work than at home. And so therefore I must be comfortable with who my partners are. That's the first thing. The second thing, we were negotiating a transaction with Old Mutual. We had been excluded. Old Mutual was doing an empowerment consortium and then excluded us. So we went there to Old Mutual, me and Lucipo Peter, to demand what's your value add? So to also call up and answer no, we can mobilize the unions, we can mobilize this. We have those already. Nina is Sandon. So okay, give us time to think about it. I see Titi Ukona no Mashala Urapi from Old Mutual. Just give us time to think about it. We talked about it, we said, look, I know the lawyers, I have a relationship with the National Association of Democratic Lawyers. I have a relationship with the Black Lawyers Association. Let me invite them to be our BEE partners. Now you need BEE. So Gil said he's going to invite the healthcare workers, which were led by Mahlati, Upur. They had about 1,000 members, they're doctors and pharmacists and nurses. So we went to them, spoke to them, and they agreed. We went back to Old Mutual and said, here we are. They were over the moon. And they included us in the transaction because they were looking forward to getting those accounts of the doctors and the lawyers. As a result, we did very well. Because we're doing this transaction, Old Mutual demanded that there's going to be no free ride. We want a performance agreement. Tell us what are the things that you are going to do to build this business. So we entered into this agreement. And Gil was the one who was responsible for making sure that we're able to meet our commitments to Old Mutual. And he did that for the entire Brimstone consortium. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of TJ here from Brimstone, because Gil made a big, big difference. And so when I formed again, I invited him to serve with us at kuMAHAMANE when I was there. And we were able to get a stake in a hospital in Mossel Bay called the Bay Hospital. When we left kuMAHAMANE, we formed VUA Investments together. And Gil ran our VUA Healthcare. We managed to do a couple of things. We got 3 hospitals in Kletchdorp, Matlosana, Velmet, and Davscott. We managed to get dossiers from India for cancer treatment and managed to have those registered here in South Africa. We managed to get a stake in a company called Medipos, which was couriering credit medicines to people. That's the contribution that Mahlati made. And so, as I stand here, I'm proud of my association with him. I'm proud of the contribution that he has made. I know but I want to say this, as Molo has said, be proud of the contribution of your father. He leaves a great legacy. Live up to it. You know, when all is said and done, I won't running in us park. We all make our mistakes. Everybody, has these shortcomings. But that's not how you measure the life of a person. Life at the end of the day is about balance. So when you look at the scale and say, of course, he did this, yes, he did that, yes, of course he did. But on balance, Gilimamba was a good man. He did well. I'm grateful that he was my friend up to the end.
I'm grateful that Bulelan is my friend. Because he said it all. Anecdotally though, Gilmahlathi didn't go say practice. But I thought I had a vague acquaintance with the Mahlati family. So it wasn't a family that was completely new to me. But Gilimamba was a different person. Ngelaa xesha besithanda ukuhlala kwafezekile phaa ezone 10 number 20. Ngaphaa ngakwenye ishibhi into kwaNontuba. Most of the time sasiye sihlwelwe phaa kwafezekile. Ndithi ngoku bendifikile phaa kwaGilimamba ndi-end apha ndihlala ezone 10 number 10. Kukho istory ke apha ngenye imini. Siyakhangelwa ke ekuseni uba bapha abantu asipecifik noGilimamba endlini. Fifu uyasikhangela afonele uFezekile. Fez, bapha abantu. Athi Fez, hayi nabale lapho ngungu. Kanti kudala sigodukela kasibonanga. Uyasikhavarela nje uba hayi silapho silenza. The one thing that I want to acknowledge about Gilimamba is resilience, which has come through in some of the stories that have been told. I remember particularly Professor Teplanch. Professor Teplanch was the specialist in South Africa in the world of liver transplants. Ukuba ngaba awudluli kuProfessor Teplanch awuzokuyifumana la degree. Awuzoyifumana at all. At that time, Gil went a Porsche. So, because we are schooling where we are panging. Jishega nemoto, na funa ndimdrope kude. Professor Teplanch angamboni. Otherwise, akasoza pass. There are many other stories that we can tell, but I think in the interest of time, mangaphumle ngoxolo uDlamini. Maphumle ngokuthula. Owakhe umsebenzi ugqibile kushiyeke thina inkosi.
Siyabulela kakhulu. Leon? Program Director of Mahlati family, honored guests, my sincere condolences to the Luther, Siseko and the Mahlati family, friends and colleagues of the African Financial Group and its affiliates. Today we pay tribute to an outstanding compatriot, and I think we all better for knowing him. Dr. Gil's underlying passion was connecting people, or rather connecting their ideas. I had the front row seat experiencing this after I was introduced to Gil by his beloved wife, Dr. Vuyo. It was December 2019. I just resigned from the South African Diplomatic Service, and I called Dr. Vuyo, who I had the privilege of engaging at various times during my career. I informed her of some of the ideas that I was pursuing, and she said, "Speak to Gil. I think you guys would like working with each other." And we did. That was the beginning of a wonderful friendship, of building capability and operationalizing ideas and plans. Lots of laughter, but above all else, drawing on his immense sense of belief and his enthusiasm for what's possible. Gil was more than a connector of people and ideas. He was an amazing bridge builder. He was that glue that made ideas stick. And his courageous leadership was really infectious. And although we were navigating business for the most part in a COVID world, he was uncomfortable with stagnation. And he refused to be complacent. He was prepared, I think,
to face the unprecedented challenges of this era. I would often joke with him after leaving a meeting where he had assessed that we're going nowhere, yeah? And I would say, Doc, I see you took the scalpel out today. He would give that loud, bellowing laugh. And I think he loved the surgical analogy. And most often he would retort and he would give a witty quip like, it's about knowing when to make a clean cut, Leon. Listening to the previous speakers, I think we all enjoyed listening to Gil when he would tell a story or narrate an experience or recount a particular moment in our country's history, in our transition to democracy, his boardroom adventures, his quest for transformation and empowerment, his wins and his losses. What I came to quickly realize was that Gil was not just the narrator of these stories, but that he was unassumingly the protagonist. In today's Instagram, social media world, we often talk of immersive experiences, yet we are more often focused on capturing these experiences for future sharing. Dr. Gil truly lived through his moments in life. And when he spoke of them, that became an immersive moment. His life was a life well lived. During the last 6 months, Gil and I traveled twice to Hong Kong as we were advancing a project with some partners out there. He was in his element. And beyond the business meetings, we had taken the time for him to meet with some networks, institutes, and some thought leaders. I recall after a lunch meeting with some leaders from Japan, he became quite animated, talking about Japan's model of participatory capital and what he believed TIPS was all about, his transformational investment portfolio and what he could achieve. It's all about democratizing access, Leon, he would speak. I can hear him saying those words to me again. Gil was no technology geek, but he believed in the power of technology to drive innovation. In healthcare, in financial services, in mining, in agriculture. He was immensely proud of the generation of young African leaders he was working with in different teams. And he understood and he thrived in the knowledge economy. He engaged with trends outside of the African Financials Group's core businesses, different sectors in this country. I think this is what enabled him to think out of the box and to become a promoter of sustainable change and innovation. Gil was a Pan-Africanist at heart. He loved the continent. He was also an internationalist who firmly believed that business and capital needed to play a more inclusive role in our divided world. He worked for economic growth, but believed in a shared growth model with social impact, leaving no one behind. In the last months working together, he was very much engaged and thinking a lot about sustainability, circularity, and the future. Gil, I will miss your strategic insight. I will miss working with you on coming up with different playbooks, game plans, or different scenarios. I will miss your drumbeat that brought a confident rhythm to all we worked on. Above all else, I'll miss your friendship. Gil, we commit together with your family and friends to advancing your ideas. We will complete what's been started. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Leon. We will now get to 3 speakers from the families very closely related with Gil. The first one is the family that gave him his dear wife. They will be followed by a family representative that saw a wife in Gil's daughter, the Diata family. The last family will be the family that gave the Mahlati family a mother to Gil, the Makaula family. I hope you have Vagala.
Better when I show up so children, I don't have to go back. About to sing a bit. Where's the no time? When this body, normally one would start the pipe body. As a check, God permit me in parting over something which came to me now is. Into yokuba ugili ezazifunda wayesenzelwe uVuyokazi ba zabo bakuhluka kukufa. We are witnessing that. When both of them at different times spoke about into cremation zabo, like uVuyokazi, amongst other things, which I didn't ask her many questions at the time, she said half her ashes will go ekhaya ekhini lisasazwe phambi kubantakwabo. That is my two brothers and the brothers, and then the other remains zakungcwatywa noGilimamba eMount Frere. Okay, that was that. We did the part. Now Gil, we've been talking kakhulu. Okay, one is all the ministers that you guys is as a son of Gil ekhaya alone. Why I say alone is because within the family you could see abantu ababekhona uGil efika nezari nezaka you guys. We're saying we were really touched by the whole thing. Umuntu wazi nomfazi wakhe emphethe ngokwakhe ekhaya. Okay, that's it. Now, when I spoke later on with uGil, sithetha echaza uba mavaksi mna ke xa ndiswelekile, as Babu Vuyo had indicated to you, I wanted to be like that, ndizawungcwatyelwa eMount Frere. And then that other half uyothuthula kaVuyo lungcwatywe nami. That is why in the city, I'm happy to see that happening. That shows the love in the man we mentioned, which uGil had for both of us. And again, we've seen and witnessed that love. Has been stated. uGil njengomkhwenyana phaya ekhaya, the role that I'm supposed to be talking about, which I'll be brief on, ngumntwana waphaya ekhaya, in the literal sense. You know, even ngokuya utata besekhona kuqala esaphila, Gil would get there, bahlale discuss, even if I'm not sometimes I won't be around, discusses all into zombangazwe notata and all of those other things. As unyana wakhe bacebisana. When utata passed on, that carried on with umama. Ya close kakhulu ke kule kamama, because utata didn't really get sick before he died. Umama really got sick again. uGil as a doctor would be tending to mama, bahlale bancokole ngayo yonke
engunyana pha. Even if uVyokazi akayanga ekhaya, uGil will be the one, let's say if he's attending meetings for East London, Bottle Frere and so on, will go there, spend ixesha nomama, alade apha ecangkwakhe ebhedini ethetha njengonyana wapha. The last one, to show uba uGil was really a son to the Zondani family. Even ngoku uVyokazi seswelekile, he never stopped visiting ekhaya rhini. Ngoku engekho aziyele yedwa. The last one was 31 September, 1 October. 2 months or almost 2 months before I shaved. Besinenkomo phaa ekhaya. Gil came ngala Friday night, Saturday, umcimbi, sihleli sonke, doing everything. Na Sunday, akajika Saturday after the nkomo thing. Sunday stayed there, ekhulukana nawo the family ehleli phaa. Umandi yonke loo nto. And the family appreciated it and said it to him, you like them, but you spend time even though uVyokazi engasekho and be here. And only to find so siyabulela kwaMahlati ngokusinika ukhwenyana ofana njengoGil osithandileyo nathi nam Frere. He used to say, Mavakisi, don't forget that you are my brother. Ukhona ufezekile, but now don't forget that you are my brother. So such things. To abantwana, the leader and Seko, what I had said when uVyokazi passed on, that likhona as umalume. Andizongena in details likhona as umalume. Andizothatha indawo kaFrere yobutata omncinci, ndingazothatha indawo kaDabawo uCawe, but kwecala lo umalume, anything elikhona ndikhona guys. Enkosi kakhulu.
Mahlabe, and bonjour. Such an emotional time for me. And for those who don't know me, my name is Jibril, and I stand here on behalf of my family, the Diata family. And I would like to really sincerely thank the Mahlati family for giving us an opportunity to pay a tribute to Dr. Gil. But indeed, as I speak here, I speak as a Diata, but I'm also speaking effectively as a member of Dr. Gil's extended family. Dr. Gil was a big brother to me. And Dr. Gil passing came as a shock to us, and I'm sure to all of you. And we can already feel the void, the absence, the gap. And my little experience with Dr. Gil and Dr. Vuyo, which is very recent, although it is recent, but the fact that they were very incredible human beings, you know, they left this mark in all of us in such a short time, both of them. I personally first met with Dr. Vuyo to formally ask on behalf of my family, Lilita's and for my brother Mohammed. And this was not only the beginning of Lilita and Mohammed marriage journey, but it was also, as I discovered, a start of a friendship and a business relationship between myself and Dr. Gil. You heard so many testimony about him. He's clear cut when it comes to business, when it comes to relationship. He was an amazing person. I mean, you cannot be next to him and not be moved or changed by or touched by whatever he is doing. So it's difficult for us. It is difficult for us, but we get reminded, like the Reverend was saying in the house up there, that we are on a journey here. We are all on a journey because we all pilgrims on this earth. And surely one day we will all go home. And Dr. Gil just went too soon, but we will surely follow him one day and we'll meet again. Dr. Gil was a very kind and compassionate man. His kindness was even greater because of the wealth of knowledge he has, you know, about the world, about the continent, about the people, and that gave him a unique ability to connect with almost anyone. Someone says here that he was a great networker. I can testify that. You know, we work on a project in Ivory Coast, and the project owner, so a private hospital that we are supposed to build, that person never physically met Dr. Gil, but when we announced the passing of Dr. Gil, she said 2 days she got sick and she could not stop crying. But someone she only spoke over on the team meeting, just to tell you how impactful Dr. Gil was. He was a man of a very wise man of great counsel. You know, you could come to Dr. Gil with any situation. He will find the right words and he will find the appropriate solution for that problem. This is someone you could always count on. He has the right word, the right solution to any situation. And I don't know how he was doing that, but that's an indication of the type of leadership. And I think today we are here more to celebrate him than anything else. We, as a Delta family, we take a comfort in the fact that he lived a great life. And with the many seeds that he planted and the wisdom that he imparted on all of us, I believe his legacy will be carried forward by Digital and Seseko and Canva. And I personally encourage all of us to rest in peace.
Hello, Bulise, Pinonke Okoyo Abekala, Mukunyazi Weloma Kaula, Mzala Gakir, all protocol observed. Gilimamba, I know this is a rather difficult moment for me. Gil, as affectionately known, besimbiza kwa Gil. Uzalwa utatu ba unokoti. First born yasekhaya. Bazalwa ngutatu mkhulu Sahlulo noMatumu akhawa. In fact, utatu bawo wayedla ukuthi xa simbiza sibothi Dubs Mafungwashi. Mna ke ake daba xa ungekho ndithi mna 1/4 gama lakhe inokota. I mean, njengoba sekutshiwo apha, Gil was a humble, principled, full of energy and a visionary. Andla ngokuthi kuye uthi you are a rare breed in academic excellence. Uyabona ke udade bawo wayedla ngokuthi xa isiyala athi jongani uGilimamba wenza uke wamosha nje jonga uGilimamba wenza. That's how Gil was to us. In fact, ngimthala ngokuthi you know, I remember Gil when he completed his medicine. I think I was doing standard 7 or so. I looked at the Bago, hey, well, and there's Uncle Mom. Do for me, I said. Put the Bago went to an extent of in second passatory one, trolley track. But we are not that. Bago Uncle Mom. A rest time, you know. What we are about. So, that's the Oi Chongwengayo, a family. Ubeyithanda ke into ba nami prince ita ukuthi ayihambi kahle ngofana ukhahlela ko mabhaca particular amabhaca ukhola esithi Zulu funeka senze private clinic apha eManfred siyibize kwaBhaca private clinic uTry. We are for we are going to go for Christmas did airport at Mamela. To finish your bonnet at cool, Bishop Tabu. You don't put to finish your present around the Amabat. See your fully guidance for the plans as to the public. So that was, you know, when we had it was so unfortunate to us. What you going recently, Ati Zulu, I've built a castle for my family. To tell you, I didn't do it. If no, we maintain as a pair. Ati, the only thing when he didn't die Useko imbone chata. Without not you precious, that will be. Once that happens, I'm done. That was a good Gil. You know, Uput Gil, Uput First, I know sister, this is that, it's Kule Kubo. Them Tanguzu. Bengati, Singawa Shachina, Bebe Tanguzu. And you know, Uput First, the other day, man, I've always grown to think once I'm not young Gilimamba. It goes the other way around. So, Naloma, if you go to Uput Gil, a lot of talk. As this, also Lubaza, I am there. Get contribution here. Maybe no more, no boy. Okay.
Siyabulela kamwe. Ndizawucela ke ngoku there is a special presentation of a certificate of appreciation from the medical profession. Sizawucela ke uDr. Nozogomgabayi to come forward as abantwana ndizawucela uba balayite elaa khandlela that has been brought by the medical profession to the family.
In the interest of time, dinikwe 3 minutes, kodwa ngicele 5. Ngoba ngizocela while ndizilungisa ndicele zonke i-colleagues. Ndizocela zonke i-colleagues in the medical profession, in the medical fraternity. I know it's inappropriate ngoba kukhona no boss mom. One day I dreamt I was going to be the state president and I was going to call all my ministers to a meeting, and that day has come. So Talakala Minister Ujo Pasha Utata, no deputy minister, balandelwe zizo zonke colleagues zethu bethuna asinaxesha. Ndiyaxolisa kwayara ndiyayithanda ngoba ndingumama womanyano kodwa ke ixesha liqhathwe yinja. So I stand here as they come. Colleagues, please come quickly. All of you, and stand in the front with, yes, Dr. Mandiwane, in the front with the children. We line up. I stand here on behalf of the Healthcare Heroes Memorial Foundation that was founded by Dr. Maggie Mojapilo. Dr. Maggie Mojapilo founded the foundation in 2020 when colleagues started passing away from COVID-19 pandemic. That year, 2020-2021, was a very difficult year for all of us as medical professionals. We lost thousands of our colleagues. We went to war because we had to work, while all of you were at home doing whatever, making babies and other things, because you had an opportunity to sit at home. We were saving people's lives. So she decided to found the foundation, and it's called Healthcare Heroes Memorial Foundation. As the 2020 was going forth, we realized that there were other very important colleagues amongst us that were passing on. Thank you. We realized that it was not just COVID that was taking our colleagues, but with the stress of COVID, the comorbidities also took a toll on our colleagues and they started passing away. So we decided to honor everybody from 2020, and then we extended it, and now it's become a huge foundation. So I have here standing in front of me from the Minister of Health in South Africa, Dr. kwaBhaca, Deputy Minister, Dr. Sibongiseni, Lomo. I'm not going to name everybody. There is my professors from medical school. I'm also a product of University of Natal Medical School, and I also qualified at 22, and I made the Dean's list, but it's not about me today. Natal is good in that sense. Most of the colleagues standing here are from Natal. Excuse me, Medunza students. So I have I believe Minister is holding the memorial candle. I cannot see Minister. Can the memorial candle? No, it's with Dr. Matiwa. The memorial candle, no, that one. Minister, I'm going to ask you to light the candle, please. It's a fresh candle, it's a new candle. And then I'm going to ask the Deputy Minister to hold the memorial plaque, Dr. Matiwane, please. And I will ask that we hand it over to the children. And then I'll say something. I think I've got 1 minute left. While they are getting ready, so we decided then to honor our colleagues in this fashion, that when they pass on, we present the family with a memorial candle. That really does last quite a long time because it's quite a big candle, and a memorial plaque in honor of them. And basically, thank you. I'm going to hand over to the Minister to read what is on the candle. Hold on, Minister. Here's the mic.
Thank you very much. The candle, in the name of Dr. Gilimamba Mahlati, we honor your selfless sacrifice and legacy, 1959 to 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you. While we do that, we also read the Hippocratic Oath, but because we don't have time, I will read and no one will follow, colleagues. My apologies. But I think it's important that everyone in the room, in the tent, gets to understand what we sign up for when we sign up for the MBCHB degree. So when we qualify, we have to take the oath, amongst other things that we have to do. So the Hippocratic Oath, Declaration of a Doctor, it says, as a doctor and member of the medical profession, I solemnly pledge that I will do my best to serve humanity, caring for the sick, promoting good health, and alleviating pain and suffering. I will care for all patients equally and not allow prejudice to influence my practice. I will respect the autonomy and dignity of my patients and will uphold their confidentiality. I will acknowledge my patients' physical, psychological, and social needs and assist them to make informed decisions that reflect their own values and beliefs. I will respect, support, and give gratitude to my teachers, colleagues, and all those who sustain the health profession. I will reflect on my practice and recognize my limits. I will seek to increase my understanding and skills and promote the advancement of medicine as both a teacher and a learner. I will work towards a fairer distribution of health resources and oppose policies in breach of human rights. I will look after my own physical, mental, emotional well-being and in my personal and professional life. I shall never intentionally cause harm to my patients and will have the utmost respect for human life. I will practice medicine with integrity, with humility, with honesty, and with compassion. I recognize that the practice of medicine is a privilege with which comes considerable responsibility, and I will not abuse my profession. I make this declaration sincerely, freely, and upon my honor. So that is the oath that your father took, and that is the oath that he stood by until he was called home. Because we believe as doctors, we're not just physical doctors, but we're spiritual doctors as well. That's what we taught in medical school, that when we die, and us as doctors have done the utmost most, is because God has called you home. That is our belief. So this is what your father stood for. And listening to all the speakers here, Mandwana, he really lived by the Hippocratic Oath. Yes, I know he did many other things, but he lived by the Hippocratic Oath until the end. So with those few words, I'd like to thank the Minister and Deputy Minister for agreeing for me to call them and for doing this very, it's a very special service. We really take it very seriously. And Minister, I'm gonna say now that this doesn't end here. At an appropriate time, we have been promised by the ministry that all those names will be unveiled one day. So we are looking forward to that day when the minister will unveil all the names. So Dr. Gilimamba Mahlati's name is etched in our memory forever. I request that minister may switch off the candle and we may go back to our seats. Family, as they go back, we hand it over to the children. Thank you very much. As the colleagues go back, I'd like to end by saying to the family, may God bind up your wounds. At least umfundisi seyithethile. Lokho ayondawo yami leyo. Jabulela kakhulu Dr. Mahlati. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Music. Minister Dr. Matome Joseph Pasha is my boss at work. It's temporary that I become his boss here. Minister Kandi Buya, I come back to this community. This is where I was born and raised, and certainly I will lie over that corner where our grandfather, his mother, and various others are. I know that we were not put you on the program, but by the semi-powers vested in me as being one of the slight elders in the family now, I will ask you to just say a few words. Minister Phalatheti. We know that you'll be with us on Wednesday at the memorial service, but we thought it would be a good idea to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Dr. Mahlati Malkole. Good morning, Sanbonani Molweni. Thank you very much. I'll take your instructions. It's not easy for us who are also taught protocol not to go through the hierarchy. But
on your instructions and in respect of your time, I will just say good morning, Sanbonani, Molweni to everyone. But I can't do so and not recognize our fundis. Otherwise, my ways will not be very clear. When I leave from here, my ways will not be clear. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you words of condolences from our leadership of the country and that of the African National Congress, that our President Ramaphosa. I'm grateful that they actually allowed me to be here because as we speak, we have a meeting of the National Executive Committee taking place in Bombela, Nelspruit. So I had to seek permission from the Secretary General, Comrade Mbalula. And I must say to you that I was pleasantly surprised with the speed with which he responded, because we had a meeting earlier on Zoom to plan part of the planning for the January 8th, and then I sent him a copy of a letter requesting as is required. And you won't believe it, the response, I thought I might have to remind him because he's got so many issues to deal with. In 1 minute, he already responded to say, you have the right to attend the funeral, go and represent us. So I consider this to be signifying the extent to which the leadership of the ANC take Dr. Mahlati in high esteem and consider his passing and his send-off here today as not only be important to the family and to the people of Mount Frere and the Eastern Cape, but also to the African National Congress and the people of the country as a whole. So I bring you those condolences on behalf of that leadership, and to say to you that this leadership says it's not only the Mahlati family which have lost a son, a father, a brother, an uncle, but the people of South Africa as a whole have lost a very great son indeed. Our presence here in numbers, I believe, attests to that fact that Dr. Mahlati was considered very highly amongst many South Africans. Because I'm convinced that as many as we are here, we only represent a small fraction. As we have had various testimonies from various speakers, also from the obituary, the kind of role which Dr. Mahlati played and the many lives which he has touched. So indeed, those of us who are here must consider ourselves, in fact, blessed to be the ones to, on behalf of many other thousands and millions of South Africans who have come here to pay our last respect. I want to take this opportunity to thank the people of this village, of maybe when I say Mount Frere is the village, some people may feel offended because somewhere they call it, there's our national chair who used to be the SG, Comrade Mantashe. Whenever we speak, he'll be saying, I'm from the city of Kala. So I believe that also those who come from Mount Frere will consider it a city of Mount Frere. But we want to thank you for giving birth to the Mahlati family, as already been indicated where he comes from. We want to thank you for giving birth to this great man and also nourishing and bringing him up from these humble beginnings to go on to conquer not just the country but the world. Not just in health professions, in medicine, specializing and also shaming even professors from our colonial masters in England. Thank you for that, Mr. Tuka, for sharing that with us, because it actually emphasizes the fact that Gilimamba was not just an ordinary. Indeed, he had royal blood. And that's why he could do this and not even fear former colonial powers. So we want to thank the people of this area, the family, because without their support and guidance, he wouldn't have reached the heights and levels which he ultimately reached. Making sure that he never also forgot his roots.
because sometimes some of us, when we go to London, New York, we even change our accent when we come back. Even just going to Sandton, you come back to Mount Frere with a different accent. But Gilimamba never did that. He always knew where he came from. But also to say that just in the education, his achievements, understanding that he came from a family which already was steeped in education, but it was not given that he was going to do well. It was again with the support and guidance that he achieved what he has achieved. We know of many young people who came from, well, families steeped in education. As we grew up, some were inspectors and bishops, but then their children became something else. So we say that again, we thank you for this. We also credit him for the services which he provided all over the country to many South Africans, not just here in the Eastern Cape. We hear his pioneering initiatives in the Western Cape when it was unknown, unheard of, except for Dr. Mantikisela, who was already there in the Western Cape, but Gilimamba ventured where nobody would venture. And of course in other parts of the country, including Gauteng. Some of his services, as we know, as a GP and as a surgeon, were more clinical, but he went beyond that to make sure that he becomes of service and changes the lives of many more South Africans. We appreciate also his contribution, as already mentioned, in the liberation struggle, as one of the what we can call the backroom cadres. Not like us who go to, you never find Gilimamba addressing a public meeting. But it was only a few who knew the role he was playing, like many others. So we want to say to you that indeed, as a liberation movement, as the ANC and the broader liberation movement, we appreciate and accredit him for his role in that regard, but also in the clinical service personally, but also, as mentioned, as a member of the former National Association of Mental and Dental, the National Association of Mental and Dental Practitioners, NAMDA. Of course, his activism did not only start when he had qualified. So I want to say that over and above the social being which he was, as Bulelani mentioned, that he also gave support even when they were arrested. As a student also, he was also part of our backroom cadres support. Some of those who we knew when things were tough, we could resort to. Sometimes when things were very difficult, for example, there was in 1980, we had the longest boycott of classes at the Natal Medical School, almost lasting almost about 2 months. It became very difficult. And at that time, Gilimamba was doing his 5th year. And those of us who were below 3rd year, 4th year, when a student strike is no different from a worker strike. After some time, fatigue sets in, and people start to feel that this is not worth it. And we had to contain it. And it was people like Gilimamba behind the scenes who helped us to organize again, get back together, and make sure that when we go back to classes, we remain very united. So it's from those backgrounds that he played a role even later on when he qualified. And I'm told that as part of his services to those who were harassed by the police, amongst one of the leaders who at that time he assisted was a comrade Sidney Mufamadi, who was later Minister of Safety and Security and various other portfolios, currently advisor to the President. At the time he was accosted by Amasiskai. Niyakhumbula Amasiskai. Nabe nje bake acosta lapha ezwelichi. Amasiskai. Ngihamba no Dr. Nsaluba and the late Dr. Tabula. We're coming from Linc's funeral. Sangela lapha ezwelichi. Babona XA. But I was Bamba, that is a police station. So I know the treatment of Amasiskai. So Gilimamba assisted former Minister Mufamadi when he was arrested by Amasiskai. And we thank him for that.
And we also, as we have already been informed, that he also played a role in looking even after our leaders, as we called on many of our professionals to look after our leaders who were coming back from prison and also those who were coming from exile. But also, he played a role behind the scenes in the various, once the democracy came in health, in various policies, including health, economics, and other development policies. Already has been mentioned his role in the establishment of the government employees medical scheme, which is one of, currently I think is the second biggest after Discovery, government employee medical scheme. So we credit Dr. Mahlati for that. Of course, as we've heard from various accounts, that he later on branched broader into the private healthcare sector, where he distinguished himself as a very astute businessman, participated in the number of establishment of various healthcare business entities. And he also assisted a number of doctors to set up a variety of healthcare ventures, including private clinics and hospitals. We remember one of his early ventures in Prime Cure, which was one of the primary healthcare clinics which were established all over the country. And there are a number of other initiatives which colleagues have already spoken about: Bua Investment, the Sipla Metro, MedPro, Amabulesi with Mr. Nuka there, and various other ventures, even outside the healthcare. But healthcare was still its main central focus. And therefore, we also recognize, I see also one of his colleagues in that respect, Dr. Judith Lamini, in the transformation of South African druggists into Aspen Pharmacare. Dr. Mahlati played a major role in that area, and of course, Mr. Nduga has already spoken about the old mutual, and how they had to push until they managed to bring many more black South Africans into that. Now, when the COVID started in 2020, he called me a number of times. We would meet, and he would send me some messages, making a number of proposals, and would now and then meet. There's a place where we would sometimes meet on appointment, but sometimes without appointment, in Centurion. There is a nice restaurant there which sells good fish. I'm not a marketer, but it's called Fishmonger. That's where me and him would meet quite often, have some nice fish, but talk very serious matters, including during the COVID. I was just going through my old emails and found some of those which he had made proposals about an app to manage COVID, which we discussed. And then he also made proposals in terms of, quite early, that message and the email on the COVID app. You would remember our first patient was diagnosed on the 5th of March, 2020. And when I checked that message, it was on the 20th of March, 2020, where he was making, and we met to discuss the issue of an app which can help us to manage COVID. And 5 days later, on the 25th of March, he sent another email, which was now making proposals on infrastructure, and saying that as Sakio Health, they can make a lot of contribution in as far as improving our health facilities. And I want to thank this company and all the colleagues, some of them are here, who have been working with him in these ventures, including in Sakio. A few months ago, I came to open the hospital just across here, as you pass Spetu Hospital. Amongst those who were the professional team, which managed to, very beautiful. Those who have not seen, I urge you, please. It's not a tourist attraction, but there is a state-of-the-art, facilities there, and very professional people. Just across here, if you just drive further, you see the sign saying Spetu Hospital. So when you have time before you go to Joburg and Cape Town, just find time to go and see. You will see one of the physical product of the company which Dr. Mahlati was involved in. As we speak, Sakio is also helping us to construct a state-of-the-art teaching hospital in Polokwane, the Limpopo Academic Hospital. That's also managed by the company which Gil was also a member of, Sakio. Now, as we know that indeed
tragedy befell the family that very same year, later, the same year of COVID, 2020, when his beloved wife, Vuyogasi, passed away. And I believe that it was very difficult for Gil to recover after the passing of his wife. I recall just about, I think almost a year ago, when my colleague, Dr. Mutwalidi, was saying to me, hey, I met Gil and he was not looking very nice. And he said to me, I asked him, Gil, something is not right. And he said to him, can I be right when I have no wife? And that was his answer. He said, what do you expect when I have no wife? So that confirms what has been said by a number of speakers here about the deep love he had for his wife and the deep sense of loss which stayed with him after the passing away of his dear wife. So there is no doubt that in Gilimamba we have lost a giant, an all-round patriot and a dedicated servant of the people of our country, a pioneer, a transformative businessman, not just one looking at the bank balance, but transformation. And that's why he also thought of, he must also come and have a private hospital in his own home area. That's why he was taking that initiative. And I'm hoping that those of us, Percy, who are left behind, and all the colleagues, that we must make sure that Gil's wish. Where I come from, where I come from in Limpopo, there is a saying, and I'll translate it in Spain. So what it means is that a person who has passed away, whatever wishes and statement he has made, you must never go across it. You must never sort of undermine it. Otherwise, you're going to get into big trouble. So I'm not saying because of trouble, but I think in honor of him, we have to make sure that something is done about his wishes. I'm sure what should worry many of us is, as generations of caliber of Gil Mahlathi and many others who have just in this area not long ago, we had to say goodbye to General Zola Dabula. And there are many others of our generation which were in the late 70s, 80s, over and above the older generation who are also leaving us on a daily basis. The question which, of course, should worry many of us is there a risk as this happens that the legacy of all these many generations of people who have made so much input into what we have in our country today, with its shortcomings, is there a risk that this can be derailed? And I think we must all work very hard to make sure that this, which have been achieved under difficult circumstances, should not be lost, notwithstanding sometimes disappointments, frustrations about things which we thought would be at a particular level. By today, I think the worst enemy to the legacy of all these cadres and comrades and all our patriots is if we then get too despondent and in that process let go of even the foundation which they have laid, which we can build on to make sure that indeed those things which as a country we have a capacity to achieve, we can still achieve. So I want to leave us with that challenge to say that indeed Dr. Gil Mahlathi is leaving us with that challenge to make sure that we don't retreat in our cocoons in whatever ways, whatever issues which we may have about contributing to society, so that we don't retreat into our comfort zones, but continue to, in his name, make sure that we can rise and make sure that the country, South Africa, can prosper beyond the various challenges. Gilimamba has run his race and he's completed his race. His spear has fallen. The question for us is, are we going to pick up a spear or are we going to look at it and say, I umkhonto umdala lo. Angisho lo umkhonto lo ukhuluma ngawo manje. Ukhuluma nge-real umkhonto. Hayi lona lo. Angithi uwile umkhonto, angisho lo. Angisho the real umkhonto wesizwe. So I'm challenging all of us to pick up this real umkhonto which Gilimamba carried and make sure that we can take it forward. sithi hamba kahle umfowethu umsebenzi wakho uqinile usebenzina manje ukuthi siqhubeke siye phambili ngala ngoxolo dlamini siyabulela.
Thank you very much, Minister. Umfunso Sultan was supposed to be somewhere else, but I convinced him that he waits until we sing this particular song. He agreed. So abo bening jonges bakin ndiyakwazi ukuconvince nabefundisi. We'll sing the song Blessed Assurance.
This song has 3 verses with a chorus. So we will sing this song. I assume that many of us know this song. And those who don't know will just hear and follow the rhythm. We sing. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Praise of nation, purchase of God. Oh, His Spirit was in His blood. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, all is just rest. I am my Savior, forever blessed. Washing and waiting, looking above. Here is His hope. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Thank you very much.
Sipulele kakhulu, sipulele. Now we are going to the part where we are going to hear from the family. First will be Utawekazi, Owashia Libeluki. She will be followed by the children, Nolilita, and after them I will announce then how we then go forward.
Befundisi lenkosi ezilapha ngakumbi ezikaMatsibana ezasinika umama wethu oZulu oKhalmesh onofisa lezi tatanyiswa ezila wonke umuntu sithi singamasisi enkosi siwelwe ngumthi omkhulu apha ekhaya uGilimamba njengoba sebenivile had an indelible event that happened to him. Utata, u-SSS, Mahlati, uStish, uVevezindaba kaZimfikele, was a huge man. They came from a generation that had the privilege and the honor and the opportunity to go to school. Their education they viewed as a way in which they can bring progress to their communities. Mna was born 66 years ago down Echua, and I can tell you that we had running water, we had electricity that ran was 6 o'clock. Abantwana basemishini babuyele ekhaya. So impucuko, I've been trying to grapple with this term in English. There is no particular term about impucuko, but what it is and what my brother stood for, Delita, was progress. I'll go back to what our family is from. Utata wazalwa nguMason. uMason wazalwa nguMgoduka. uMgoduka wazalwa nguMqabandlu. Senivile kuba uMqabandlu was died fighting a lion there. And apparently when the lion was struggling with him, and wathi uMqabandlu izani madoda sendibambile eza madoda kanti bambele. And uMqabandlu ke was the counsel to uNcapayi. uNcapayi was the descendant kaMatsikane. Wahamba wathwala umboko wendlovu esiya ekhini. Eyokwenza ntoni ekhini? Eyocela the British colonial missionaries to come to our area in order to establish education stations. Thina singamazizi, thina singamamfengu. Abantwana bamamfengu abekhula lilitha senyenze lento kukamva. Whether this story is true or not, but it's a urban legend. Uba ngaba sithina we build a fire. The fire is your God, but not Utito is a leader because our belief and the belief of Amamfengu was that they have got superior weaponry, and therefore Amamfengu wanted to go and study and learn, so that one day they may conquer. Umama Adelaide Tambo used to say to me all the time, she used to say, Mtanam, you must learn to stoop in order to conquer. And she more or less encapsulated the belief Yamamfengu and the belief of this household, Mahlati. Yobangaba, you must take whatever tools you've got, use them, so that one day you can rise again. So ke uGilimamba dabende mezomahamba mina damshela ibe sasiselwa noGilimamba ndaye physically tackle him When he was 12 years old, I called back, yo, but our relationship was like that. It was a very, there was a sibling thing. Abantu abane-siblings, bayayazi loo nto. Abantu ozizwa abana-siblings, they don't know what I'm talking about. Where you had a loving relationship, but that relationship didn't mean that you did not quarrel. Because I also believe that in quarreling, you resolve a lot of issues. But again, I'm paying a tribute to Emazisi. Bantwana basekhaya, uGilimamba embodied the values that his parents gave him. Umama notata, in fact, legend has uba ngaba ufezekile if wayengakhulelanga kule family ngingazanga futhi. So, imfundo kwaMahlati was so honored. Utata omkhulu Mason, Radio Transkei on the 1st of January, each year, he used to congratulate the grandparents. How many degree angabubisi, he would not be his grandparents. So, sikhuliswe ngemfundo. I am not surprised. I'll tell you what, I last physically stopped living with Gil when he was 11 and I was 13. When he went to Marine Hill, I went to another seminar. Thereafter, we lived in different geographic areas. So his death has also illuminated to me who he was. And I must say, I'm really surprised, Lilith, by what people say your father was. Engaging, humble, humorous, umntu wabantu. That certainly wasn't my experience. But yeah, I am happy that he had that ability to do that elsewhere. Gilimamba was the kind of a person, I recall once, I had a problem. From 6 to 16. And in America, they want their $50,000 upfront for January. So then the short, can I touch you up maybe for 100,000? What he sent one word on the email, no. And then later on he said, if possible, you can talk to your bank account, to your bank manager. I will provide the backup of the loan. So, he's being disciplined, being conscientious, was part and parcel of who he really was. And today I am so happy that so many people have spoken. They've spoken about this Gilimamba that I have been hearing about, but certainly the consistency of what people are relating to must be true. And so when this out there, it knows this, abalapha. Njengoba lo mthi wale omkhulu uwile, Siseko, you've got huge feet to carry, to enter into. But I think zikulingene, because your parents, in fact, let me relate this story esithethwe nguLelane. When uGilimamba was going to see uLelane eSwitzerland, wadlula kumpha eAustria. Wathi and by the way, wayeyovakashela omnye umuntu. And so on the first night, what he just arranged a place for me to play squash. So I arranged for him to go and play squash with OPEC. I belonged to a particular club. Within 3 days, #1 champion. Then in the same spa that we were in, it was unisex. So Kauya Pau Yongene spa, Bengena males and females. And on Saturday, we threw a party for him. And I had an Austrian boyfriend then. One day, I killed, why oh, this country is confusing. Did he know, Mom? Uti, all these women in this party I've seen naked, but I haven't slept with them. And on the same occasion, he said to me, by the way, I've met the woman that I'm going to marry. And your mother used to love for me to relate this story. Because Uvuyo had simply gone to his surgery the week before he flew off. He had not spoken to her. She had not indicated whether, how she feels about it. But Gil had decided, this is going to be my wife. So one try like him, and indeed, when we met with Uvuyo, she encapsulated the qualities that my mother had. In fact, she even physically resembled her. Enebunzi, enkulu, emnyama. And it's not surprising to me that they had a storybook love. How many of the people that are married today share bank accounts? Gilimamba and Mfazi shared a bank account. One could not spend 5 rand without the other knowing about the 5 rand. Yeah. And Bafundis, I think that this may be a tactic to keep families together. My glance in the audience. Tibona for Walaba Eastern Cape, and I must pay tribute to him because he's my boss. He has just appointed me to the Eastern Cape Tourism and Parks Board. So in short, we've been told that it is in short. Nani Edilita, now as I say, and the whole family. I know, Lilita, you worked with your father, so you will miss his counsel, but you fortunately had an opportunity to live with him, work with him, and to know what he's thinking. Ukhona uminister lo ebethe uGili wanted to do a hospital in Mount Frere. I can testify ke ubangaba indlu kaMama phayezansi kwedolophu sidilizile in anticipation of this hospital. And we were waiting, we were hoping that you will fulfill his wish. But before I sit, one of the things that I want to say to these young kids, abaja uchis, nabakumsha, ubangaba, tina during our time, and education was a pathway to a reconnection with community. When you were endowed with skills, when you had money, that was supposed to be shared, not only with you and your extended family. And we certainly would never coin the term of black tax. But in order for our country to be rejuvenated, it cannot be that the middle strata of society is absent in politics. Because the middle strata in society is what has engendered all revolution, and everything is working in accordance with their branch in what the state of organization. We have received information on the date of the funeral and have a child. We're not on a card.
They know that love
that big boisterous love you can hear from far. Okay, no, yes. I just want you to know how great a father the man was. He was a walking encyclopedia. He would sit in the kitchen, you know, life, pitfalls, gossip about these people and that. And as it was mentioned, from the worst of ailments, their fears, their anxieties, their losses, but prepared them for the injustices and discomfort. Made my father a love that made my father literally.
Now, you know, living in America and New York, going into rooms where people don't even know who you are. You know, they can make certain assumptions about Africa and all of that. And I'm able to understand who I am because of that. And nobody can take that away from me. So whatever meeting room or whatever thing that I get into, it will be known. So the same way Utata got his strength from knowing he's a descendant of kwaBhaca, it also gives me a lot of strength knowing that I'm the son of Gilimamba, Mahlati. You know, when he was 11 years old, he had to pick the cow to slaughter for his dad's funeral and everything like that. And it so happens that the cow evolved, you know. I was in boarding school at Khini. He would fly down for all the good things, some bad things. There weren't many bad things, though. But he was just a very involved father, so a very loving father. In terms of the third theme now, intelligence and joy, I mean intelligence, driven, ambitious, visionary, also played hard. And someone else had also mentioned, in fact, Uncle Kosotlang was saying, sometimes it's best to grieve through laughter from their memories. And we have many moments of that, so that gave me really comfort when him saying that. So that's the last thing, but just in generally and in closing, just seeing both of my parents, unfortunately, who have passed, it really encourages me to be a better person. One, because you hear other stories that you weren't necessarily exposed to, like my dad said. Although in my case, I believe them from day one. I've got these big shoes to fill. Utata was a size 8, I'm a size 11. To consider it more. They knew what they were doing with you too. So just lastly, and this is really lastly now, and please forgive me, I'm about to boast about my family. You know, as has been said, you're across throughout the ages, throughout many years back.
Ndizawucela ke ufezekile azowenza ilizwe lombulelo. Emva koko sawucela iculo ngexa lokushiywa, after which we will have
test impulse. So bamane bekhazula phinde kufuneka babophe kwakhona. And ngelo xesha bashiya ipati ngamanye amaxesha. Kufuneka uyojonga ezi-rabbits nempuphu. Because kufuneka abhale ireport uba ngexesha elithile binje bathi. So uprofessor wakhe sibulela kakhulu. There are many who are going to send the link yoba abantu babukele. There are many other associations, including the medical fraternity or Old Mutual, who wanted to do a memorial. Which I think they've agreed. So, sifuna umkhulula ngoku. Sifuna nje nikwazi usela amanzi nifake lonto okanye nifike kwihotel kusakhanya. So ngalo mazwi otata umfundisi bishop obishop obabini ndiyabulela kakhulu hayi kuthiwe afike ezulwini afike yabona la umculo wasezokotela babhinge lo sithi anyway xa iphuma pha ufika kuGabriel hayi ndingakhetha ukuthi mambolala sawubabomzi hayi the following day afike ekuseni kuthiwe ukhethile athi ya uthi ayisho athi ya uthi ufuna uyaphi athi kudala kuxokonga sathana ngiya esogwini hayi xa ifike esogwini awufika kukhalisa
sihlala sibhedesha igama lakho amandla Kristu uthando kaThixo bawudlela ngomangcwele baphumla kusonke bona phakade amen